Hi folks, this is the first video in a series of videos. I'm going to start looking at animation and animating in Maya. I'm going to start off with the basics, talk you through the main principles of animating, taking you up through some different techniques, exploring how to do certain things with parenting objects to get a different animation going, maybe using lines to animate objects so they follow curves and things like that, and some other techniques. And then I'll move on to walking animations and look at some rigging as well. So animating isn't that scary really. It is quite straightforward, and you can get things moving in Maya quite easily. What I'm going to do is just talk you through the basics in this first video and get you to have a play with the basic animation techniques. What you're going to need is obviously the animation shelf set open. You don't want the polygon one on there, you want the animation. But for now what I'll do is I'll put in a cube maybe, and I will start moving this about, animating it, changing some of the properties and show you how it works. Okay, so let's turn on animation then, and this is important because it's going to allow us to get to the key menu, and this is where you're going to be going to for a lot of your animation. So set key, we're going to be using that a fair bit. Okay, so the animation window is along the bottom here. This is what we're looking at. So if you can't see it, if you put on My Classic, that should pop up. Animation, I think, as well will show you it. You might have a few more options in here with the graph editor as well, and the outliner for your parents. But if you're on My Classic, you should still see the pop-up at the bottom here. So a few things then. We've got the slider here, which shows the range of animation that we're looking at. So it works in frames, and at the minute we're on frame 1, and if we move along you can see we're moving through the animation up to 200 units. So this is like the range. This is like, if you imagine like your time, this is what you're playing with. So you can set keys in here, and it will change the properties. So it's almost like taking a snapshot of your scene at each stage, and Maya will smoothly move through the properties that you set, so you can make adjustments. Let's look at this bit over here. So these controls here, we've got rewind to the beginning, we've got rewind by steps, by frame, sorry, so we can step forward and back. Move to different key points, so move back and forward through different key points. Play the animation reverse, play it forward, and then the same going this way. So fast forward to the end, step forward 1 frame, and step forward to the next keyframe. You can change the length as well of the range if you want to do longer animations by changing this. So at the minute we're going from 1 to 200 frames. If we wanted to make it longer, we could do 500 frames. And then our animation is longer, so we can change the length of the animation that we want to. Important as well is if you need to make adjustments to the time slider or any settings in animation, then the way to do it is click on this little geezer here that's running away from a cog, and you can make adjustments here. But I think the best thing to sort of show off these tools and techniques is to start putting in some keyframes and see it in action. I've got the channel box open here, and it's quite handy to have that open when you're animating. So what you need to do, let's just select this object, and what I'm first going to do is set a key on the first frame and just set it as like a starting point. This is the scene, this is how it's going to look in that first animation. So make sure I'm on animation, key, and then set key. This will set a key, so you can see a little red lines appeared here, and these transform values have been, it's like taking a snapshot of it, and they've all been marked as red. If I now move this along and move my cube, and do the same thing, set key, it will do the same thing. And now if I move backwards and forwards, you can see that the Maya is automatically changing these values until it reaches the values that we keyed in there. Okay, nice and straightforward. So let's do another one, maybe over here, and I'll move it this way. Maybe I'll scale it up a bit, move it up, and I'll do the same thing. And you'll see the shortcut is S for this, so you can hit S and it will do the same thing. And let's put in one more, let's move it on again. Let's move it over here, move it up, scale it up again a bit maybe. And finally, another way to have that shortcut is to add it to your own bar. So you can see I've actually added set key to my own shelf. And the way I could do that is, if you have a look at a previous video of customizing shelves, but if you hold down Control Shift, it will assign it to whichever shelf you've got. So I can do the same thing there. Okay, cool. So you can see now with those 4 keyframes in there, if I hit play, it's going to loop my animation. Okay, cool. So let's just see some of these things in action then. If we hit the back play, it will play it in reverse. If we stop this and go from our keyframes, this is going to jump to the keyframes that we set. So we can kind of scale through each keyframe that we set. Or we can go through frame by frame. So if we wanted to make slight adjustments, add in some more keyframes, make adjustments that way, we can do it that way, or we can fast forward and rewind to the start. Okay, cool. Now what Maya's actually doing here is that it's playing the animation in free time. So if we just click on this little dude here, we want to make sure that this is set up in the correct way. By default, it will look like this: play every frame, max playback speed 3. And what you probably want to do is just set this to just real time, 24 frames per second. In Europe, in UK, films are in 24 frames a second, so you see 24 frames every single second. When you go to the cinema, when you're watching TV and things like that, animations will be playing back in that speed. So for every 24 frames, so there's 1 second basically. So if we play this now, the speed will probably change, so it's slightly different. So that's actually playing back in the correct time now. Okay, nice. Right, next video I'll show you how to remove keyframes and delete all animation, and tidy up things a little bit further if you've made any mistakes.